How do you know if a relationship is worth saving?
Shall I stay or shall I go? Is one of the fundamental questions. Even if you decide to stay, or even if they decide to go, you may do so while at the same time having a part of you that actually holds the other side. If you think that the decision is 100% perfect, no doubt, no hesitation, then it's a setup. If you leave, you need to be able to leave while experiencing the loss of some things that may have been good, even if it's just a dream of what was. If you stay, you have to be able to grieve the part of you that will never know what it would have been like if you actually left. The answer is not in the extreme determination, it's in the ability to hold the inherent contradictions. It's a complex question, and complex questions don't have easy binary answers.
Why do you use the word grief? And can you walk us through both of those losses of identity that you spoke about on either end?
So grief is because every choice comes with loss. The consequence is the choice you didn't make. And even though you think this is the right choice and this is what I must do, the grief may be the fact that you were not capable of making this thing work, or that you had such high hopes and it didn't materialize, or that you have wished that you didn't make some mistakes that you made, or that you wish you had left sooner. There's lots of different ways, but there is no choice that doesn't have loss and therefore some grief attached to it. And that is the nature of the beast. That does not mean that you didn't make the right choice. In terms of heartbreak, some people experience heartbreak with such an ache, with such a sense of longing and such a sense of fracturing on the inside that their longing becomes obsessive, that they are trapped in rumination, experienced like a withdrawal. That is not all breakups, but that is the extreme kind of breakup, which has been compared to an addiction because of the intense sense of withdrawal and because it takes place in the same centers in the brain.
What have you seen over the years of what it really takes? But what have you seen it really takes from a human?
One of the first things I often think about is accountability. It's actually not asking the other person to do all the changing. Somebody's going to tell me, but what if you've done that and it hasn't made any difference on the other side? In general, in relationships, we often get to a place where we think, you need to change. Here, I'm going to tell you what you could do differently that would make this relationship better. And the hardest thing to do is to actually say, what can I do? Because if you change, it is quite sure that it will also create change on the other side, because we are interdependent parts. In a relationship, I start to do something which makes you do something, which makes me do something. It's a figure 8. But if I start to do something else, sooner or later, you cannot continue to do the same. If I no longer answer you when you say something, there's a good chance that at some point you're going to stop saying it because you don't get the reaction that you've been used to get. But there's no better way to change the other than to change ourselves. A good principle to keep in mind. What is it that I can do differently? What's one thing I could choose that I know would improve the relationship because I've heard you or because I know us? And if I don't instantly walk out every time, but I actually stay and I listen and I pay attention, will that create something rather than thinking about, all the good reasons why I should get out or leave in that moment? 10 other things about what makes us work on a relationship to improve it. Here we were fighting about what's the right moment to do the dishes, but in fact, what we were talking about is you don't care, you don't see me, you don't appreciate me, you want it your way. And what you're highlighting here is something that I've actually talked a lot about in a new course that I'm doing on conflict, which is exactly that. How do you turn conflict into connection? It's not what you fight about, it's what you fight for. You were fighting for recognition, you were fighting for power and control, you were fighting for respect, you were fighting for trust and closeness. Underneath the fight, there are usually 3 sets of issues that we are actually fighting for. And that is power, trust, and value. What is the hidden dimension that you are actually fighting for? The fight, the dishes, the when to do them becomes a lot more clear. Rather than it's not just I'm imposing my belief on you and I want it to do my way because my way is the right way. You may think this way, but the question is what happens when you have to confront yourself with someone who is different? I mean, everything about relationships is about straddling sameness and difference. And so then the question is, if you have to change your mind, does that mean that it's a loss of your identity? Or can you actually experience that as an expansion, as something that you let in? How do you let the other person influence you without being constantly in a defense of your, this is my flag and here are my values or my operation system? In every relationship, you will find that there often is one person who is more afraid of losing the other and one person who is more afraid of losing themselves. One person more afraid of abandonment and rejection, therefore more likely to acquiesce, to pacify, to placate, to say yes until maybe one day not. And one person more afraid of suffocation, and therefore they fight for their ideas, their ways of doing it, the timing of the dishes. That is less about power. That is more about the nature of connection. The majority of power struggles in a relationship are not power struggles. Power is the defense. The control battle is the way people are defending, trying to get something for something else that they are worried about. It's the surface behavior. Some people, when they're afraid, they fight. But the issue is not fighting. The issue is that they're actually afraid and they're trying to deal with their fear by gaining control. So don't just go for what you see, because what you see isn't necessarily just what it is. Go always looking a level below. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of this. Who did you have to fight with? That you had a sense that if you don't go all the way and with fists, that's the motion of fighting, right? It's not this. But you enter the relationship with that, and yet you live it with this. So what happened to you that is making you continuously interpret every situation as a fight, as a power struggle, as I have to stand up and hold on because if I give in, this is the beginning of a slippery slope. Now, maybe you picked somebody with whom this is sometime what is going to happen. So then you ask this person, what happens if you don't get your way? For you, the question is, what happens if the other person gets their way? Can you still feel confident even if you don't trample somebody?